Hi, I'm Dan from Ozgel.
And I'm Trent from Softobs.
And I'm Jonathan with Airsoftology.
And today we're having a chat to Jonathan about gel blasters and airsoft. All right, Jonathan, mate, thank you so much for joining us. It is a real pleasure to have you here on the podcast. An absolute honor to have you here. I've been watching your videos for a very long time. In fact, I've used your videos and in particular your product reviews for some products that I've imported to Ozgel. So that's been great. Now, you're a huge name in airsoft. You've got over 200,000 YouTube subscribers there. Tell us about how you got into airsoft and how you ended up in a situation where you are running a successful YouTube channel.
Well, first off, let me say thank you for having me on. Like, this is, you have no idea the fans, if I mention Australia, that's all I have to do. It's like, it's crazy in the comment section what happens. Like, people are like, oh, we want to talk about it. Like, I can definitely tell there's a lot of good things going on in your country. For me, it's an honor to be on your show, not the other way around. But for me in the background, golly, like, how did I get into, like, I think I started like a lot of people did, just as a player. I was collecting. Actually, I didn't even play. I was buying airsoft on, at the time, eBay. I remember this, and I kind of got into tinkering. This is long before you could even like get on the internet and find videos of how to fix an airsoft gun. So I kind of figured it out myself. I think everybody did it the same way back then. You just put it in a box, you opened up the gearbox, and the parts exploded everywhere. And you're like, all right, jigsaw puzzle time, right? Figure out how these pieces go back together. And it started from there. I started tinkering and listening to airsoft podcasts because really YouTube wasn't much of a thing back in like that time period. And started my own podcast when one of my favorite ones went off the air. And then a few years later, it evolved into video because people were like, oh, we want to see you. And it just kind of happened. And the next thing I know, around 2012, I started thinking about making this thing a full-time business. And like, okay, how do you build a business around a YouTube channel and you know, a hobby and something you love? And here we are. It's like, we kind of made it up as I've gone, really. It's really been an interesting thing, an interesting trip to get here along the way. But I really think it came down to me being a player like everybody else. I think that's how we all started. And it's a much deeper story. If you have an hour to talk about this, I could really go deep into like how I wandered into the path of teching, because I think my background in airsoft is actually tech. And if you guys, I think a lot of people know this about me. I used to be a computer engineer in the past. So I'm a little more hands-on type of guy. So, but yeah, we can talk more about that later if you want to.
Yeah, cool. Definitely, man. I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool story. And mate, we'll talk in great depth, maybe when I'm over there in Taiwan in the future, over a couple of beers, maybe.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. I mean, seriously, not that I'm speaking for the country or anything, but I want to see you guys. Need to come here, hang out. We'll have some beers. We'll go eat some crazy food, and I'll show you the city.
Sleepover. Yeah.
Well, you just crash on the couch right here. I mean, this is my place, right?
Excellent. All right.
Fantastic. And so, I mean, you are in Taiwan. I mean, how has COVID-19 affected, airsoft and affected yourself as well?
Well, I think Taiwan is probably the exception to the rule when it comes to the world, because this country has done an amazing job at controlling the virus. When it started, we got it under control here very, very quickly. And through border control, then everybody just following the rules, right? Everyone wearing masks, everyone doing their best to social distance, just following the basics. And we've kept it at bay. So everybody that comes in that imports cases, they're put into quarantine, they're treated, they're tested on landing. So it's like this little weird bubble. Like all my friends back in the States, because I'm originally from the United States, they're talking about fields closing and things like that. And here it's business as usual, just with masks, of course. So things really haven't changed from a player and lifestyle side here. So it's been pretty good.
Cool. Similar to us.
Yeah.
Well, look, regarding the content on your YouTube channel, though, I've been a huge fan for a while. As I said before, I've been watching a lot of your reviews. It's one of the things I really like about the diversity in your content. You do a lot of reviews, and I've noticed that with some of the airsoft news that you include, you also include some controversial topiks. I won't get into the specifics of those because, I don't want to set anyone off, but
the comment section on there will just like explode,
Exactly, yeah. But I guess, how do you come up with these different topics? How do you decide, okay, I'm going to do a review this week or I'm going to do news this week? Is it something that just sort of happens, or do you plan this out sort of well in advance?
It's a little of both, actually. I'd love to say everything's proactive here. I'd love to say that I was, had a schedule for the next 6 months. And I do in a way, like usually with reviews, and I'm kind of looking off camera off here to the side because, as much as it looks nice and neat and organized here, like in my entry hall area, like under, like I have like a table there. Under the table is just stacked up full of like boxes of guns and products. I'm like, there's my review pile. And I got review piles everywhere here. So reviews usually queue up. So I do have foresight into that sometimes. And usually I'm trying to plan those pre-release if possible. So typically I'm getting a product, if I can, a week or two, or even a month ahead of time before it hits the market. And that's a benefit of me being here in Taiwan, because by the time it has to get on the water, especially traveling to Europe or US or North America or your European Union, to you guys is a little quicker. But the product has about a month on the water. So I have that time from when the product drops here to when it gets there to actually do some content and produce it, and sometimes have that up depending on the company I'm working with. If I get a chance to get the product, sometimes I'll go buy the product myself because I want to do a video on it. Sometimes I'm able to coordinate with the manufacturers here and do it. So some of that is planned out. When it comes to my Q&A show, which you're talking about controversial topics, I honestly, if I'm going to film a Q&A show, I will sit down in front of the computer the day I'm filming and go through the previous week's video and look at everybody's comments, and I'll pick them out within 10 minutes of doing the video. Like it's literally that. It's so last second because I wanted to be a little more real. I wanted to be, I guess my reaction and my response to be natural and not pre-planned and scripted. But when it does come to controversial topics, I do plan ahead on those. Yeah, I want to make sure they're right. And I think that's the most important thing. The difference of those when I get into, I'm not going to mention which ones, but they're peppered in throughout my playlist. I don't like to do it all the time either, because I don't want that to be what my channel's known for, like the primary thing.
Yeah.
But those I like to plan ahead. I really do, because I want to make sure I'm not misspeaking, and I want to make sure I look at the issue, whatever it might be, in a very objective manner and make people think or ask questions about it versus me throwing a hard opinion at it.
Oh, that's a good approach to have, I think.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the most sensible way to do it, right? Opposed to just being filled with emotion. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, there's been some YouTubers. I mean, they're long since gone, and I won't name any names. They've been out of the YouTube industry probably for 5-6 years at this point. But there were some that would just focus on controversial topics in airsoft, and they just hung their hat, I guess, on it. And you just build a reputation in a bad way for it. And I just want to, my goal, and I think all of our goal, anybody who's in this industry professionally, is I want to make sure we are looking and growing in a positive way. There's so many external forces that are always coming at us, laws, and I'm sure we'll talk about that here soon, laws, whether it's, your country, here in Taiwan, believe it or not, still some of the same constant battles. In the United States, there's constant battles to fight to keep this hobby and the sport of ours in the legal side and versus the illegal side. So the last thing we need is to bring more negative attention, especially inside of our own community, on ourselves.
Absolutely.
Absolutely agree. Now, so one of the other things you mentioned, I mean, in terms of where you started, in terms of the teching and all that sort of stuff as well. I mean, how much do you know about gel blasters and kind of what's exploded over here in Australia?
Very little, actually. From the play, I've actually seen quite a few gel blasters. It's funny because I'll visit a lot of the factories here in Taiwan, and I know, of course, you guys know that some of the factories here do both. They'll do a gel blaster, they'll do airsoft. I think my first experience is, I won't name the company, but I was visiting a company to get some products and stuff, and I was like, hey, this is a little different. Something's going on here. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, this is a gel blaster. And that was like my first exposure, was after I'd already been here to Taiwan and got a chance to see it. And there's a lot, of course, not 100%, but there's a lot of similarities between a gel blaster and an airsoft product up into the barrel portion, obviously that area, and the hop up or lack thereof.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, do you find that there's sort of ongoing questions surrounding what's happening in Australia? You mentioned something before we started the podcast. You were talking about that.
Yes, a lot. I think it's interesting. I think I've always seen on my of course I look at metrics, it's YouTube, right? We all have to like what's going on, who's watching. If you're doing YouTube channel for a professional for a job, you're going to look at your analytics and your metrics and who's listening and who's watching and who's, interacting with your content. And Australia's always been like, there. It's not like buried down on the list. And I'm like, it's really strange, considering that airsoft's really not a legal thing there. So I know there's a community. I know it. Like, I know there's a lot of people that are watching, that are interested. And then I know the news hit in, I guess, one of the areas in your country, the news hit, I guess, about a month or two ago, about shifting laws on the gel blaster side for that one region. Potentially some things happening, I guess, with the magistrate, or I'm not sure the right terminology, but that I mentioned it briefly, and like the feedback in the comments were like, we want to know more. We want to know more. And I'm like, well, I don't want to speak on something I'm not educated on, but like every week it's like, once I mentioned it, I'm like, Jonathan, when are you going to talk about this topic? So I'm super excited from this podcast, because I want to try to take some of this. I know you guys are interviewing me, but in a way I kind of want to interview you a little bit so I can take this and share it on my channel and help educate the world and the viewers there a little bit more about what's going on in Australia. And maybe there's a way we all can help.
Well, Matt, there's we can probably make some comment on this. So, firstly, I guess it's important to understand from outside Australia that Australia is divided up into several states. So similar to California, Arizona over in the US. What's happening in Australia is you've got two states where gel blasters are declared. Well, at one point you had two states where gel blasters were declared completely legal: Queensland and South Australia, two different states. Okay. Now, South Australia is the state where we've had all those issues. And essentially what's happened is the process for us as gel ballers has been, if you want to import a gel blaster from overseas, you have to submit a permit, which is called a B709 over here. And ultimately what happened in South Australia is they stopped approving those permits at the start of the year and didn't really explain why. And eventually, South Australia police came out and said, well, you know what, gel blasters are firearms, they're banned. Well, not banned, but
you now require a license or a permit to own and use those.
So no different than owning a real firearm. You would have to have the same license for that as you would for a gel blaster.
Okay. However, the big difference being, as you would know, most gel blasters are fully automatic. Yes. So that therein presents another issue where it then becomes near on impossible to obtain a license that allows you to have an automatic firearm, which is quite silly when you consider what's being fired out of a gel blaster. A little Orbi, but it's nuts.
And what do you call it? You call it a what?
A little Orbi, Orbi.
Orbi. Okay. Orbi. Okay. I was wondering, I was like, so what do you call the actual projectiles?
We call them gel balls over here though. So yeah.
Okay. Gel ball. Okay.
Orbis I think they're a bit bigger. A lot of kids play with them, the little hydro beads, and then they've just been all the way down to smaller sizes to be used in gel blasters as well.
Yeah. So, ultimately what's happening in South Australia now is a whole bunch of businesses have banded together and they're taking South Australia police to court. And they're basically fighting to have their right to own a gel blaster there without having to obtain a license. I guess the biggest issue and the most controversy surrounding this topic has been the manner in which the police impose these new rules. And they really didn't give anyone any notice. They're saying they did this or they suggested that, but they didn't black and white sit people down and give store owners a bit of a chance to prepare for this. And ultimately you've ended up in a situation where more than 50 businesses were closed overnight. And so it's not just affecting people in the hobby, it's all the people employed in the industry as well, and all the suppliers for those businesses.
And I think, I was thinking about this on the way over here as well, is the timing couldn't have been worse.
Yeah.
Right. We're talking about in the middle of stuff going on from the economy and COVID-19 is overnight, all of a sudden, all these businesses have to shut up shop. And it's not just the stores, it's the fields, it's all the supporting people around that as well.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. I mean, the fields have to if they want to continue to operate, they have to get the same sort of license that a paintball field requires to operate in Australia, which is still a process. And so far as I know, in South Australia, just one field has been able to do that.
One that we know of.
Yeah, it's the Bunker Indoor CQB.
Yeah.
But how do the players deal with it then? If the product's now, so is it, if you already had a permit before, you were still okay to own what you had?
It's a bit of an amnesty period at the moment. So they can go along and play there at the fields. It's just the fields had to get on the license thing straight away. But yeah, come, I think it's, what is it, February next year?
Yeah, it was relatively close. And it was because there were questions about, even if you go and put, an application in to get that permit, is there any guarantee that it's even going to be turned around in that time as well?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean,
or if it'll be approved, because just like you said, they're not approving the permits to even import the product into that state.
Yeah, spot on. And on the flip side of that, up here in Queensland, where we are, it's completely legal up here. It's supported by the police. In fact, one of the police officers that's in quite a senior position of weapons licensing in Queensland, he's an avid gel baller, brings his kids out playing as well. So, we do have quite a lot of support here. The Minister for Police in Queensland publicly supports gel blasters. So, I mean, there's a lot of positivity up in our state, and it's really a thriving industry up here. It's just South Australia. I think it's one of those situations where you've had a very small group of, I wouldn't call them ultra conservatives, but definitely heavily opinionated people, try to implement this change. And now I think they're realizing how much it's backfired because, they've wound it up in court.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. The story you just told me very much parallels what I've seen happen, like, for example, in the States, like in California, where they tried to do that. I don't know if you followed it a long time ago, like the rainbow gun bill, where they were trying to push all the airsoft products. It was first trying to make them illegal if they were even 6mm. And then they were like, okay, we'll compromise and make them brightly colored. And they kind of went down this long path. But yeah, it sounds very familiar. And it was all politically motivated at the end of the day. It was basically a politician wanting to get a firearm win, essentially, and couldn't go the proper route. So he had to, like, okay, I'll take a shot at the airsoft industry. Yeah. So it sounds like you guys are battling a very similar battle, same story, I guess, same song, different chorus, or maybe I don't know how to describe it.
I think one thing that the police over here, not so much in Queensland, but certainly other states, don't realize is how many avid gel ballers there are out there. I mean, there are a buttload of people playing this sport. And to the point where people are willing to travel interstate to play, or even overseas. There's Australians going over to New Zealand to play airsoft. It's just nuts.
I've known about that. I've known about Australians traveling to New Zealand to go play. I have known about that because I've talked to some of my Australian viewers, and they were like, yeah, we'll sometimes, like, once a year or whatever, pack up and we'll take our stuff. We'll go to New Zealand for like a big event or a game or something, or a long weekend, and go play over there because the laws are obviously different. And I was like, wow, that is one heck of a migration, really, or a heck of a go to like a whole different country just to go play. But heck, traveling to a different state for you guys is definitely not an easy task either, because your states are rather large.
Yes, in comparison to somewhere like the US and definitely Taiwan, quite large.
Yeah. I mean, Taiwan, I can go top to bottom in like 4 hours, so it's not. It's pretty small here. It's pretty easy. I can get on the high-speed train and be at the south tip in like five hours total. So
that's cool. I mean, that's ultimately what it's like over here for us at the moment, though. But I mean, I do believe that this will continue to grow in Australia, and I would not be surprised if at some point we do see airsoft legalized in our country.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
So help me out, a little backstory, because I know so what point was airsoft was banned kind of in parallel with like some firearms law changes?
It was very much
back in the day.
Sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it was very grey for a long time. The reality is gel blasters have actually been in Australia for the past decade. They just haven't been very, as popular or well known. And what happened was, I believe it was the start of 2018, there was one of the retailers over here had a container seized because they were importing gel blasters. And they ended up taking the, our customs equivalent, Australian Border Force, to court, won the case, had a magistrate declare gel blasters as being toys. And from that point on, the doors completely opened. And I think that, Yes, there were definitely bureaucrats out there trying to restrict this expansion, but I don't think they were expecting how quickly people would jump on this. And it just exploded so quick in popularity because you keep people away from airsoft or something they want to do for so long. The moment there's a little bit of rope, they will yank that thing and take the whole lot. Doesn't matter how long it is.
Absolutely. I remember. I think early on when there were discussions with the Queensland Police, and they were talking about these new regulations, we started looking at the analytics behind it, and it was absolutely mental. They're just numbers that you just would not expect in terms of how many units are out there, how many people are engaged, how many people are playing or otherwise engaged with the hobby. And I think ultimately that's one of the things that have certainly helped where we ended up with in Queensland.
Definitely. And, we've got a good up here in Queensland. A lot of us in the geoball industry have very good relationships with various politicians and with Queensland Police. And I think that really helps us to allow them to understand how popular the sport is. And after everyone's seen what happened in South Australia, I think there would be a lot of people out there second guessing following similar actions up here, because Gel Blaster enthusiasts are extremely loud. So,
yeah. Well, it's a great hobby. And I think a lot of people in today's time where we're all glued to our computers, our phones, or Xbox, PlayStation, whatever, to get out and go do something that's active and it's fun. And I think also you hit on the point earlier, more than anything, the parent and the kids can go out and have the same hobby, right? And do things together. There's not many things you can do. And even now in this time, to be able to social distance, if that's something that's important, like it's required where you live due to COVID, you can actually still play like outdoor airsoft and be in a social distancing situation and still be okay. I mean, indoor may be a little bit more of a challenge, but outdoor you still can. So there's not many sports or things that are active that you can still continue to do this. And I say airsoft, and my brain I use the word airsoft, but in your case, gel blasters. Sorry for everybody in Australia watching. I mean, gel blasters too. Play gel ball. It's the same, right? It's one of those few things that it's universal. I think that's the challenge is, like you said, and I think you've done a fantastic job. What you said is, if you can show the politician, show the police, and you said you already have somebody who's high in the police force that's out playing, once they see it and they see the parents and the kids playing together and everybody being active and everyone being safe and what it teaches and teamwork and community and all these things that I think in today's day we're lacking a lot of, like the education of that and experience of that in a real world application. It's great. It really is. There's so many positives, but on the outside, everybody stares and looks at it. It's like, oh, that gel blaster looks like a real gun. That's all they see.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. But there's so many arguments, for and against, I guess, but we generally are able to talk our way around a lot of the naysayers, so to speak. But I mean, a lot of the arguments we hear from police are things like, it's very hard to the untrained eye to determine the difference between a real gun and a gel blaster. But then, even just around the corner from where we are now, there's a major toy retailer where I can walk in and spend $20 on using that same rhetoric, a toy gun where if I cover the red tip, it's going to look real, and, if the worry is about people committing crime with these things, I mean, if you're faced with the option of buy a $20 toy from a well-known toy franchise or buy a gel blaster for $200, if you're a crim, you're probably going to go and buy the cheaper option. It's one of those things where I argue it's been out there. It's been out there for so long now. For the past 2-3 decades that toy guns have been available in Australia, no one said anything. But gel blasters, they appear, and all of a sudden everyone's got an issue. It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I don't know what it is that targets our parallel hobbies here of airsoft and gel blasters. I don't know why it is, but it seems to be that like they'll skip the toys. I think maybe it comes down to the amount of money and the fear of having to fight these huge toy companies. For something versus like they kind of look at the industry and they think, because you to your earlier too, they think, oh well, this is just the field has maybe 20 people they go out and play, and they don't realize there are thousands and thousands of us that are actively playing airsoft, playing gel ball, that are in all walks of life.
Yeah.
And when they finally poke the bear, they're like, oh, whoops, like you said, what happened in Australia, right? It's
And
like, oh, well, we shouldn't have poked this bear. It's bigger than we thought.
it's the businesses too. So I mean, I will try and keep some level of anonymity here, but I mean, as a wholesaler in the industry, which is essentially what I am, I get a lot of insight into the size of different businesses, and what I can say is one of the largest businesses in our industry turns over a gross revenue of 2 million Australian dollars per month. So I mean, that's one business out of hundreds in the country. So I mean, it's an industry where if you poke the bear, it's going to turn around, morph into a dragon, and destroy everything. So it's probably a really bad analogy to use. Actually, we're not really so violent or anything like that. But you know what I mean. It's one of those things where it's not a small industry anymore.
Right. Yeah, it really. I think the same thing. Like to go parallel to what happened here, there was an issue in Taiwan with a legal battle a few years ago, and I remember seeing when they finally ran the numbers, because they went to court over it. Right, they were talking about the power. It was basically a product that was designed for export, but someone got a hold of it domestically, and like it was considered a firearm domestic because of the power level it was capable of doing if you modified it. I mean, you had to go like crazy modify to make it work and run like steel balls in it and use a totally different power source that was never ever designed for, and it's not a power source we even use in our industry, to get it to do this. And it was kind of like they were trying to make an example of this, and maybe some politicians were moving to maybe hurt this. And I remember seeing numbers in Taiwan. They said, hey, this is how many employees that are going to be affected by this. This is how much export money. Like they started putting up real numbers against some of these companies. And I was just blown away. I'm like, they export that much? I mean, I knew we're like, and that's companies that also not only do airsoft, but they also do gel blasters, right? A lot of the same companies make both. And just seeing that number, I was just like, oh, I mean, I know this is a pretty big industry, but you don't realize how real it's like until you kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and you realize, we're bigger than we think. I just think it's like a small little hobby, right? But in reality, we're pretty substantial.
That's it. Exactly right. But hey, look, let's move on to something a little bit more fun with you though. So
yeah, we're getting all serious into the
we're getting more political and everything. Controversial. Okay, so Jonathan, tell us one thing your current audience doesn't already know about you. It could be a hobby, could be an opinion, whatever.
Like it's funny. My hobbies are all like, everything's now focused on what I do for a living. It's all like, YouTube and tech. Let's see. I a little bit about my background. So like my background may not know I came from the world. I think, okay, here's one thing. I know a lot of people know about my years of traveling in RV, but prior to that, I actually was pretty high up in service delivery for a Fortune 500 IT company in the United States. I was actually over an entire region. I did business process outsourcing for a lot of Fortune 100 companies in the States. So like my background is business consulting on a B2B level. I don't think a lot of people know that about me. They just look at like, oh, this guy's just an airsoft or whatever, YouTuber guy. But yeah, that's one thing maybe about me in my history that a lot of people don't realize that like I left that. And that was in 2012, I guess. Yeah. I made the leap. I remember that was probably one of the scariest moments of my life, is walking in to my boss's office. I remember this very clearly. And it was like, hey, I decided I'm going to step away. And the first question was, who are you going to? Like, they want to know, like, who's the competitor, right? Like, who's recruited you away? I'm like, no, really, I'm leaving. And they're like, well, what are you doing? And I was reluctant to say. I'm like, well, I mean, they knew the people at work knew I played airsoft.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I'm going to focus on YouTube. And they're like, what? So, I mean, I left this really cushy corporate, what a lot of people would think is on the outside looking in, like a great job. And it was a great job to make at that point $1.35 a day on YouTube. So my gross revenue was $1.35 every day, as well as averaging for my business at that time. It wasn't even a business at that point, right? It was just like a little bit of YouTube trickle revenue. And I think everybody thought I might've been crazy, but I mean, it sounds like a jump I'd saved up for a while and I was moving to it. But yeah, that was like the big leap to go. And at that point, I'd already gone into the YouTube side. It's years after been doing the podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people may not know that my background is in IT, service delivery management, and that may be something about me. Or yeah. That's kind of boring, but
no, I mean, look, that's a huge leap, right? To be going from what you've described and that cushy job out into YouTube. I mean, how long did it take? Like, surely there was a period of time where there was still a little bit of doubt there. I mean, how long did it take for you to finally get comfortable and realize, like, no, this is it. This is the thing I want to do, and it's going to work.
It was a great motivator, I think, to do something like that, because I mean, once you've jumped, it's really hard to go back. I mean, like, those jobs like that aren't everywhere, right? You can't just like, oh, this didn't work out, I'm going to go get another job and, for working for a big company like that. I mean, those only open up every so often. So once I left, and it was a big, I'd say that like that first year were a lot of those questioning life moments, like, oh, do I really make the right decision? And then it's just like, it's a motivator, right? To push harder and push harder. And I think I needed that. Otherwise I'd never be where I'm here. It'd always be like a secondary thing. I would still be doing this because I love sharing and helping. I think that's really the core of the channel, is to try to share and help, which kind of goes back to my tech days. I always like try to help people with computers. But I think that was the motivator, really, to not have a safety net anymore, to make that leap, that jump. And then it's YouTube, right? Like, even today, we still don't know how to do. There's no, you can't go to school. There's no college course, right? You can't go to university and be like, all right, we're going to learn how to be a online entrepreneur, right? Like, that's not like in this realm, like on using YouTube as a platform. I mean, that's not a class you can take. That's not even a course of study. I mean, every month it changes, like YouTube, that's constantly like moving the ball on you. So I think it still keeps me on my toes.
Behind the table here is actually nodding his head. He runs a channel as well, and they all understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
So everybody who's behind the camera, I know this because like I kind of do both. Like I'm on both sides of the camera, but all the guys that are not on the camera right now, they're behind there going, yeah, I know. Like it's like the most stressful thing, because like every day it's like, all right, how's our world going to get turned upside down today? Like, you're just waiting for that next, notification. Or maybe when you finally figure out, like, all right, I've kind of found out how the YouTube algorithm, like, I think I've figured out like how my piece works in it. Like, it just changes, and it changes randomly. It's like, all of a sudden, like, you can put up what you feel like is a mediocre video. You're like, oh, I'll just push this one out. I got to get content out today. And it blows up. It does so good. And then you can put so much work. And I know you guys are nodding your heads. You can put like hours and hours and hours of work into this like produced video. You're like, oh, this is going to crush it. I know this is amazing content. And you can spend all the time on a thumbnail and do all the things right. And it's, yeah. And like, yeah, you're like, oh, what? Okay, great. It's like, you open up your YouTube console and it's like, this video is not performing. Your audience seems to have less interest in this video than normal. And you're just like, oh. So
flip the table, walk away.
Yeah, you have actually, you develop a little thick skin. You have to realize that once it's like giving birth to a child, right? I mean, anybody in this, by the way, I highly encourage anyone in your community to be getting into this if they can. I know it's like, you're crazy and get into it. Like, why would you tell somebody on YouTube? So unsolicited advice, I guess, here, start creating, but don't be discouraged. Like, even me, I put out content. It's just like, how did that only get that, like, those few views? I mean, like, really so few views. And I'll put out stuff, and sometimes that video that got like 20% of what I normally would get in views, 6 months later explodes. And you just don't know why. You have no clue why. So
you just run with it. You're like, yeah, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, you just take it. I mean, it's like, just basically you just have to like, once like giving, it's like sending I don't have any kids, but like sending a kid off to college, right? You're like, all right, congratulations, you're off to school, and just hope I spent all the time I could, raising you right, good luck, you just have to like send them off and hope they do their best. And that's kind of like when you make a video, it's like you send that child out into the world, and who knows what's going to happen, right?
There you go. You heard that first here, folks. Jonathan from Airsoftology, no kids.
No kids. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no kids.
Awesome.
Now, the other thing is, so you moved over to Taiwan. What's the airsoft scene actually like there? I mean, over here for Gel Blasters, like, we have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people going out on weekends, playing every weekend, really getting involved. Is that, is it hugely popular over there, or how's it go?
It is. I think there's a couple things that make it a little different because of the average salary here. The cost of an airsoft gun in relation to the average salary is quite high, right? So if you look at Australia, you're looking at probably average salaries that are on par with Japan, United States, Europe, Europe, things like that. We're all kind of roughly in the same bracket of earned income and relative cost of product generally. But in Taiwan, you're looking at an effective doubling of that, really. So like it'd be essentially like a gel blaster costing twice as much.
Yeah.
As it does today. So it is a bit of a limiting factor, but that said, the community here is still alive. There's fields all over, up and down. There's two that I really kind of frequent here. One is kind of a small CQB-ish. It's 2 stories indoors. It's the main floor and a basement, and it's in the city, accessible by subway. And then there's another one it's indoor because it's in a big old warehouse, like a massive warehouse, and the actual police use it for their SWAT training here as well. So it's an airsoft field on the weekends, and during the week it's police tactical training facility.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's where a lot of people that one's bigger, it's a lot larger. So on a normal weekend, you'll see maybe 50 to 100 players there. At the other one, you'll see maybe like 50 or 60 players there, and they'll play in sessions. So morning session, afternoon session, especially in the one here in the city that's a little tighter and smaller. So it's actually quite alive. I mean, I would say it's every bit as busy as any of the big fields I go to in the States or in Japan when I've traveled there and played, or anywhere else in the world. It's right on.
Yeah.
I guess the difference here is I see a higher percentage of gas blowbacks. I think that's probably the more notable thing.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, look, as we start to move towards wrapping it up, there's one more thing I just want to talk about. And do you have any intentions to come over to Australia anytime in the future?
Heck yeah. Like this year I had plans, I had travel plans, right? I think everybody did.
Yep.
But this year I had I had to cancel so many flights. I got murdered around March, and I was going to get to Iwa. And I had basically I have almost a month's worth of travel planned in Europe, and Australia has been on my list. Absolutely positively. Of course, I wasn't going to do it in the summertime here. I wouldn't want to be down there in the wintertime for you. I want to kind of time it around the good weather.
Yeah.
Because right now you guys are moving into warm weather.
Yeah, rather.
So,
yeah. I'm sitting here sweating. But
was it like in the 30s there, or is it higher? What are you guys at?
High 30s.
Oh, high 30s?
Yeah.
Oh. Sounds like here in the summer, it's brutal. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, as soon as the doors open, I want to start traveling. I want to get a vaccine and I want to get on a plane. I mean, that's kind of my progression there. So as soon as I can get there and not get stuck in like a 2-week quarantine going and coming and lose a month of my life, 2 weeks on each end, I absolutely want to come.
And do you know much about the Australian wildlife, or?
No, I don't. Well, okay. I will say this. As an American, I only know the stereotypical, I hate to say, stereotypical, everything will kill you in Australia wildlife. That's it. It's Australia. Yeah, everything's designed to kill you there.
Yep.
Is the stereotype true, or
do you want to tell him about that? Yeah, there is one creature here that just scares the pants off absolutely everyone in the country and most people who visit.
Is that the old drop bears? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're familiar with koalas, obviously, in Australia.
Drop bear? I've heard about this. Yes. Okay.
Are you familiar with drop bears?
Yes, I've heard they're very deadly. Yeah, I mean, absolutely deadly. I mean, just how many deaths a year are attributed to drop bears?
Large number, right?
Yeah, I'd say several dozen at least per year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this guy's trolling us now. I think he knows. He knows the secret. Yes, he does. You've probably watched all the other podcasts where we've got every other foreign person, and you're like, nah, they ain't getting me.
Yeah, no, actually, believe it or not, on purpose, I try not to prep for a show. A way, go back and look at your back catalog right there. On purpose, I don't. The same way I do my things. But no, actually, it's funny. It's probably been 5 or 6 years, but I am familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you someone we got really good with that. It was Mark from Red Wolf. I know you're familiar with Mark.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got him good with that.
Good.
The podcast we did there. I think afterwards, it's one of the things he said to me, because we still chat quite a lot. We keep in touch on Facebook now as well. And he keeps telling me, you know, oh man, all my friends from the US, they give me so much crap for that. So yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, I tried to
because you know Mark's family's in the States. So
yeah. Well, we actually also tried getting Laylax with that as well. So it was Masaki and Ryan. And when we tried the drop bear line, Ryan sort of moved backwards and started giggling to himself. So I knew he was all over it. And Masaki was like, what? I was like, yeah, man.
So Ryan just kind of shuffled in the back and.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Well, look, Jonathan, mate, thank you so much for your time today. It's been hugely entertaining for us. I'm sure it's going to be entertaining for the people watching this. But speaking of which, how do people find you?
It's pretty simple. Just youtube.com/airsoftology, or you can go to airsoftology.com. Either one works. And all the socials are linked there. I mean, of course, I'm on all the socials, Instagram. It's just airsoftology everywhere. So
awesome. Thanks, dude.
Pretty easy.
And Trent?
Yeah, look, Soft Ops. That's Instagram, Facebook. It's soft.ops. And of course, we've got our Gel Ball app as well. So that's softops.app.
And guys, as always, I'm Dan from Ozgel. You can find Ozgel at www.ozgel.com.au. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and all the big socials. So just have a look for Ozgel. You'll find us. All right, guys. Thanks very much for your time today. Jonathan, again, thank you very much. See you later.
Thank you.